I froze as I reread my parents' text in my Prudential Tower office, Boston's skyline stretching beyond the glass. Your investment fund is gone. The market crashed. You're on your own. It said their words cold as ice. I'm Cassandra Holt, 32, and I had been in the middle of a high-stakes meeting with investors pitching a new fund that could reshape portfolios across the Northeast. The conference room buzzed with suits and laptops, numbers flashing across screens until that message appeared on my phone. I excused myself, my heart steady but my mind racing. They assumed I was just a small-time financial consultant scraping by and dependent on Mom's investment fund. The irony was almost laughable. For 8 years, I had been the one sustaining that fund, pouring in millions while they claimed credit for every cent. I leaned back in my chair, a smile spreading across my face. This wasn't a crisis. It was an opportunity. I dialed Marjorie, my financial advisor, her number on speed dial. "Cassandra Holt here," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "Send me the complete report on Mom's fund, every contribution, every source." Marjorie's tone was crisp and professional. "You mean the report showing you've been the main contributor for 8 years? "Exactly," I replied, my smile widening. "Game on." The truth was about to come out, and I was ready to turn the tables. What my parents didn't know was that I had built an empire they would never see coming. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family, left in the dark about your true worth? Drop a comment and share your story. Where are you watching from? Let's talk about those moments that change everything. Settling at my desk, I dialed Marjorie Klein, my financial advisor for 6 years. The phone barely rang before she picked up. "Cassandra, is everything okay?" Marjorie's voice was steady as always. I leaned forward, my fingers tapping the polished wood. "I need the full report on Mom's investment fund. Every transaction, every source. Send it to my parents today." A pause lingered on the line. "You mean the one showing you've contributed $15 million over 8 years?" she asked, careful but knowing. "Exactly," I said, my voice firm. "No more hiding. They need to know." Marjorie promised to send the report by noon but added, "Are you sure about this? Once it's out, there's no turning back." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "I'm sure. It's time." I hung up my mind, drifting back to the beginning. 8 years ago, I had started my investment firm with $1 million scraped together from early consulting gigs. I was 24, fresh out of an MBA, burning with ambition. My parents, however, were drowning in debt from a failed real estate deal. Dad had been a bank manager, always preaching smart investments, but he and Mom had sunk their savings into a collapsing condo project in Cambridge. They'd lost everything, hundreds of thousands, their retirement plans, even their pride. Mom, Pamela Burke, a retired schoolteacher, had suffered the most, blaming herself for trusting Dad's guidance. I couldn't watch them spiral, so I stepped in quietly, funneling money into Mom's investment fund to cover their mortgage taxes and late-night panic calls about foreclosure. It wasn't just about money. I wanted Mom to feel some triumph. Every month, I transferred funds through a shell company, making it appear that her stock picks were brilliant. Dad would nod approvingly at family dinners, saying, "Pamela's got a knack for this." I bit my tongue, letting them believe the illusion. It kept them from interfering with my firm, which was growing faster than I ever imagined. By year 3, I was managing assets for major players, hedge funds, pension plans, private wealth. My firm reached a valuation of $7 billion, but to my family, I was still the kid who dabbled in finance, too young to know better. They lectured me about safe bets while I quietly paid their bills. The deception wasn't easy. Setting up the shell company took months, coordinating with lawyers to conceal my involvement. I'd attend meetings, signing deals worth millions, then drive to Cambridge for Sunday dinners, listening to Dad boast about Mom's market savvy. It stung, but I told myself it was worth it. Mom smiled more. Dad stopped pacing at night, and their townhouse remained safe. I had built a wall between my success and their reality, not out of malice, but because they'd never believed in me. Growing up, they had called my dreams impractical, My MBA a nice try. I would prove them wrong not out of spite, but to protect them. Marjorie called back, breaking my thoughts. The report's ready, she said. I've included every transfer coded to your firm's account. It's airtight. I thanked her, my pulse quickening. The truth was a loaded gun, and I was about to pull the trigger. Mom's fund, which they thought was their lifeline, had been mine all along. I had poured $15 million into it, every cent, to keep them afloat. Now they would see the real numbers and the real me. Gazing at the Charles River from my office window, I reflected on my company's rise. 8 years ago, I had started with $1 million, a scrappy fund built on late nights and bold bets. Now at 32, I ran a $7 billion investment firm, managing assets for some of the biggest players in finance, pension funds, endowments, private wealth. My team handled portfolios across Boston, New York, even London. We had turned small stakes into fortunes, navigating market crashes and tech booms with precision. I had negotiated deals with CEOs who had underestimated me, only to walk away with contracts that reshaped industries. Yet to my family, I was just a small-time consultant piecing together a living with freelance gigs. The disconnect was almost comical. Mom Pamela would pat my hand at family dinners, saying, "You'll figure it out someday." Dad would chime in, lecturing about safe investments, oblivious to the irony. They believed Mom's fund, the one they thought was her genius, was their safety net. They had no idea I had been the one propping it up, funneling millions to keep their world intact. My older brother, Caleb Burke, was the worst. At 37, he had built a law practice in Cambridge, but a botched case last year had left him drowning in legal debts. He leaned on Mom's fund to cover settlements, never questioning where the money came from. To him, I was the little sister who played with numbers, not someone running a financial empire. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. Caleb's name lit up the screen. I answered, bracing myself. "Cassandra, what the hell's going on with Mom's fund?" His voice was sharp, laced with panic. "Dad says it's gone. The market tanked and you didn't even check on it." I let him vent, my fingers drumming on the desk. He rambled about his debts, hundreds of thousands tied to a failed lawsuit. A client had sued him for malpractice, and the settlement had wiped out his savings. Mom's fund was his lifeline, and now he thought it was gone. "Caleb, calm down," I said evenly. "The fund's not what you think. Maybe you should ask where the money has been coming from all this time." He scoffed, voice rising. "What's that supposed to mean? You're telling me you know something we don't." I could hear the disbelief, the same tone he had used when I told him I was applying for an MBA. "Just think about it," I replied, not ready to reveal everything yet. "Look at the numbers when they arrive." He muttered something about me being useless and hung up, his anger lingering like static. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Caleb's call wasn't a surprise. He had always been quick to judge, assuming I was chasing dreams too big for me. Growing up, he teased me for studying finance, calling it boring math. Mom and Dad had nodded along, urging me to pick a stable career. Yet here I was, managing billions while they clung to their illusions. Caleb's debts were real, though court filings I had seen showed he owed nearly $500,000. I had covered most of it through Mom's fund, but he had never thanked me. None of them had. The truth was coming, and I wasn't sure they would handle it. 8 years ago, I had quietly begun fixing my family's financial disasters. Back then, Mom and Dad were staring at a mountain of debt from a failed condo project in Cambridge. They had poured their life savings, hundreds of thousands, into a development that collapsed when the market tanked. Their townhouse teetered on the brink of foreclosure, and I could see the strain in Mom's eyes and the way Dad's shoulders slumped at dinner. I was 24, just launching my investment firm, but I couldn't let them lose everything. So I began funneling money into Mom's investment account, disguising it as profits from her stock picks. Over 8 years, I channeled $15 million through a shell company covering their mortgage, property taxes, and late fees. It wasn't just about saving the house, it was about giving Mom Pamela a sense of victory after years of defeat. I also propped up my brother Caleb. His law practice hit a rough patch after a malpractice lawsuit drained him. He came to Mom for help, assuming her fund was a gold mine. I made sure it was wiring funds to cover his settlements, nearly $500,000 without his knowledge. I told myself it was for family, that keeping them afloat justified the secrecy. But it meant sitting through Sunday dinners in Cambridge listening to Mom boast about her market instincts. She would hold court at the dining table, describing her latest trades with a gleam in her eye, while Dad nodded proudly. "Pamela's got a gift," he'd say, raising a glass. I'd smile and swallow the truth, knowing every dollar they celebrated came from me. The charade wasn't simple. Setting up the shell company took months, and I worked with accountants to bury my tracks. I'd sign multi-million-dollar deals by day, then drive to Cambridge for family dinners, and hear Mom lecture me about playing it safe in finance. It stung, but I let it go. Their pride was fragile, and I didn't want to shatter it. Caleb was no better. He'd roll his eyes when I mentioned my firm, calling it a side hustle. Once at a family barbecue, he laughed and said, "Cassandra, stick to crunching numbers for clients, not dreaming big." I nodded, hiding the fact that I was managing billions. My phone rang, pulling me back to the present. It was Sheila Norton, Caleb's wife. I answered, already bracing for her tone. "Cassandra, what's going on with the fund?" She snapped, suspicion tight in her voice. "Caleb's freaking out, and I know you're involved somehow. What aren't you telling us?" I gripped the phone and kept my voice steady. "Sheila, you'll see the report soon. Just wait." She scoffed, her words cutting. "Wait. We're drowning in debt and you act like it's no big deal. If you're hiding something, you owe us an explanation now." I could hear Caleb in the background muttering agreement. Sheila pressed harder. "If Mom's fund is gone, we deserve to know who messed it up. Are you managing it or not?" I took a breath, patience thinning. "Sheila, you don't know the half of it. Check the report when it arrives." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, I will. And if you're pulling strings behind our backs, Cassandra, you'll regret it." The line went dead. Her threat hung in the air. I set the phone down, jaw tight. Sheila's suspicion wasn't new. She'd always been quick to assume the worst of me since she married Caleb. But this time her accusations lit a spark. The report was on its way. And with it, the truth. My family was about to learn who had been holding them up all along. Tracy poked her head into my office, her expression tense. Tracy Vaughn, my best friend since MBA days, wasn't one for drama, so her furrowed brow signaled trouble. "Cassandra," she said, stepping inside and closing the door. "I just came from your parents' place in Cambridge. Your dad, James Burke, and Mom are at each other's throats over the fund. It's bad." I leaned back in my chair, still feeling the weight of Sheila's call. Tracy perched on the edge of my desk, voice low. "James is blaming Pamela for the market crash, saying she mismanaged everything. She's screaming back that he never trusted her. They're tearing into each other, and Caleb isn't helping." I rubbed my temples, picturing the chaos in their Cambridge townhouse. Mom had always prided herself on her investment savvy, a facade I had carefully constructed to protect her pride. Now, with the fund supposedly gone, their fragile egos were crumbling. Tracy's eyes softened. "They mentioned you, too. James said you should have kept an eye on things, that you're too distracted with your job." I laughed, sharp and bitter. Distracted? I'd been carrying their financial survival for 8 years. Tracy raised an eyebrow. "You okay? You've got that look like you're about to blow everything up." She wasn't wrong. I grabbed my phone and dialed Marjorie. She picked up on the first ring. "Cassandra, the report's been sent," she said, tone clipped. "Your parents and Caleb got it 10 minutes ago. It details every cent of your $15 million traced back to your firm. No room for doubt." I nodded, pulse steady. "Good. They're about to learn who's been pulling the strings." Marjorie hesitated. "Are you sure you want this out there? It'll change things with your family." I didn't waver. "It's already changed. I'm done hiding." Hanging up, I stared at my desk, mind racing. The report would shatter Mom's image as a market genius. For years, I had let her bask in that illusion, crafting it with every transfer through the shell company. I'd sat through her lectures at family dinners, her stories of picking winners in the market, while my firm quietly managed billions. She'd smile confident while I stayed silent, letting her believe she'd saved the family. But that silence had cost me. Every time she patted my hand, saying, "You'll get there one day," it cut deeper. I had built a $7 billion empire, and they still saw me as the kid who needed guidance. James was no better. He'd spent his career at a bank preaching risk management, yet tanked their savings on a bad real estate deal. I had bailed them out, covering mortgage taxes, even Caleb's legal debts, all while they dismissed my work as a side gig. Tracy watched me reading my silence. "You're really going through with this, aren't you?" she asked. I nodded. They need to know the truth. Not just about the money, but about me. She sighed, crossing her arms. "It's going to be a mess. Pamela's built her whole identity around that fund. What happens when she finds out it was you all along?" I didn't have an easy answer. Mom's pride was fragile, tied to her belief that she'd outsmarted the market. When the report landed, it would strip that away, forcing her to face her failures. James, too, would have to confront his role in their financial ruin. I wasn't naive. I knew they wouldn't thank me. They'd lash out, maybe even hate me. Caleb and Sheila were already circling, ready to point fingers. But I was tired of carrying their delusions. The truth wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my place in a family that had never seen me clearly. I stood pacing the office. The report was out, and there was no turning back. I had spent years protecting them, hiding my success to spare their feelings. No more. They'd see the numbers: $15 million, my money, my work. I wasn't the little sister they pitied. I was the one who'd kept them afloat. The confrontation was coming, and I was ready no matter how ugly it got. My phone buzzed with Mom's name, and I braced myself. I'd been waiting for this call, knowing the report Marjorie sent would hit like a storm. I answered, and Pamela's voice came through, trembling with rage. "Cassandra, what is this nonsense? This report says you funded my account $15 million. You think you can make a fool of me?" Before I could respond, Dad's voice cut in heavy with accusation. "You've been lying to us, Cassandra. All this time, playing us like puppets." I took a deep breath, my grip tightening on the phone. "I wasn't lying. I was saving you." Caleb's voice joined, sharp and loud. "Saving us. You've been sneaking around, funneling money behind our backs. Do you know how humiliating this is?" I could hear Sheila in the background, her tone venomous. "She's been manipulating us, Caleb. She wanted to control the family, make us look like fools." I clenched my jaw, the words stinging. "That's not true," I said, voice steady but cold. "I poured $15 million into Mom's fund to keep you all afloat. Your house, Caleb's debts, every cent came from me. I'm not the one who lost it. The market crashed. Not me." Pamela gasped, voice breaking. "You're saying I didn't earn any of it, that my investments were fake?" The hurt in her tone was raw, but I didn't flinch. "Mom, I made it look like you were winning to protect your pride. But I'm done hiding. I built a $7 billion investment firm. I've been managing assets for global clients while you thought I was scraping by." Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Then Dad spoke, voice low. $7 billion. You expect us to believe that you're a consultant, Cassandra, not some Wall Street tycoon. Sheila jumped in, words dripping with scorn. "She's lying, James. She's trying to take credit for Pamela's work to make herself look good. This is about her ego, not us." I laughed, bitter. "Ego? I paid off your mortgage, Dad. I covered Caleb's $500,000 lawsuit. My firm's been on Forbes lists, and you still think I'm making it up?" Caleb snapped back, defending Mom. "Stop twisting this, Cassandra. You could have told us, but you chose to play God. You made Mom think she was someone she's not." The accusation hit hard, but I didn't back down. "I told you all I was building something big. You laughed, called it a pipe dream. I kept you afloat because I cared, but I'm not sorry for succeeding. Pamela's voice broke through, shaky but furious. You took away my dignity, Cassandra. I thought I'd saved us. Now you're saying it was all a lie? I swallowed the weight of her words settling in. I wanted you to feel strong, Mom. But I can't keep pretending I'm less than I am. Sheila's voice rose again, cutting like a blade. You're a control freak, Cassandra. You didn't do this for us. You did it to feel superior. You've torn this family apart. Caleb chimed in, tone icy. She's right. You should have stayed out of it. Now we're a laughingstock because of you. I gripped the phone, heart pounding. I gave everything to protect you, and this is what I get, blame. I'm done carrying your weight. Dad's voice came through, final and cold. You've gone too far, Cassandra. Don't expect us to thank you for this. The call ended abruptly, their anger echoing in my ears. I set the phone down, hands shaking. The truth was, out my $7 billion empire, my years of bailing them out. But instead of clarity, it had fractured us further. Sheila's accusations, Caleb's betrayal, Mom's broken pride, they'd turned on me just as I'd feared. The rift was real now, and I wasn't sure it could be mended. Sipping coffee at my desk, I braced for the fallout. The call with Mom, Dad, Caleb, and Sheila had left my nerves raw, their accusations still ringing in my ears. I'd barely set my mug down when my phone lit up again, Mom's name once more. I answered, steeling myself. Cassandra, you owe us an explanation, Pamela demanded, her voice tight with indignation. Why would you hide this from us? All that money, pretending it was mine. I took a breath, keeping my tone even. I hid it because you never believed in me. When I told you about my MBA, you called it a waste. When I started my first investment project, you and Dad laughed, said I'd crash and burn. Dad's voice cut in, dismissive. Don't rewrite history, Cassandra. We supported you. But this, sneaking around making us look foolish, that's not support. I clenched my fist, old wounds reopening. Support. You told me to get a real job at a bank like you. Caleb called my firm a hobby. I built a $7 billion company, and you never once asked how. Pamela scoffed, pride unshaken. You could have told us. Instead, you played us, letting me think I was the one keeping us afloat. That's cruel. Before I could respond, Sheila's voice broke through, sharp and entitled. You've got billions, Cassandra. We deserve a cut of that fund. Caleb and I have debts $500,000 thanks to his lawsuit. You owe us for keeping quiet all these years. Caleb jumped in, tone greedy. She's right. You used Mom's name for your scheme. We're family, you can't just hoard it all. I laughed cold. Hoard, I paid your mortgage, Dad. I covered Caleb's legal mess. $15 million, my money went to you. And now you want more? Pamela's voice rose unyielding. You don't get to act superior, Cassandra. You should have been honest. I'm your mother, I deserve to know. I shook my head, though they couldn't see. Honest, I tried, Mom. I told you about my dreams, my plans. You brushed me off, said I was too young to know better. I hid the truth to protect you, not to hurt you. Dad snorted. Protect us. You wanted control. You're no hero, Cassandra. Their refusal to apologize, to even acknowledge my sacrifice, burned deep. My assistant knocked, holding a memo about a press conference. My firm was finalizing a deal to sell a major stake, a move that could push our valuation higher. Reporters were circling, eager for a statement. I waved her off, focus locked on this mess. I'm not doing the press conference, I told her, voice firm. Not now. The world could wait. My family's betrayal demanded my attention. I turned back to the call. You think I owe you, Caleb, Sheila? You've taken enough. That fund was my gift, not your right. Sheila's voice turned venomous. You're selfish, Cassandra. You built your empire on our backs, using Mom's name to play your little game. We'll take this to court if we have to. I gripped the phone, patience gone. Court. Go ahead. The report shows every dollar came from me. You'll get nothing. Caleb's voice hardened. "You've ruined us, Cassandra. Don't expect an invitation to Thanksgiving." The line went dead. Their words, a final cut. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Their arrogance, their greed, it was worse than I'd imagined. I'd spent years shielding them only to be met with demands and blame. The press could speculate about my company's sale, but I wasn't ready to face the world. Not yet. This family drama, this fracture, was all I could handle now. 6 months later, I signed the final papers to sell my company. The deal was complete, a $9 billion sale that cemented my status as a billionaire at 32. The conference room in my Prudential Tower office buzzed with lawyers and executives, their congratulations echoing as I shook hands. My team had built a financial empire from a single million, navigating markets and outsmarting competitors. Now I walked away with wealth most could only dream of. But as I left the room, my thoughts weren't on the money, they were on the family I'd left behind. I hadn't spoken to Mom, Dad, Caleb, or Sheila since that final call. Their demands for a share of my success and their refusal to acknowledge my sacrifices had drawn a line I wouldn't cross. Pamela had sent a few texts pleading for a meeting, but I didn't respond. Dad left voicemails, his tone shifting from anger to guilt, but I deleted them. Caleb and Sheila tried emailing, hinting at reconciliation, but their words felt hollow. I had given them everything, $15 million to save their home cover debts and preserve pride, and they'd thrown it back in my face. So I cut them off. No calls, no visits, no explanations. Word spread quickly in Cambridge. Friends of Mom and Dad, people who had once toasted Pamela's investment genius at dinner parties, now whispered the truth. The report Marjorie sent had leaked, revealing that I, not Pamela, had funded their survival. Their social circle turned cold, invitations dried up, and their reputation crumbled. James, once a respected banker, faced sideways glances at his old firm. Pamela's boasts about her market savvy now rang hollow, her confidence exposed as a facade. They had built their pride on my money, and now they paid the price. Caleb and Sheila fared no better. His law practice, already fragile from a malpractice suit, buckled under unpaid debts. Without my funds to bail them out, they scrambled to cover $500,000 in legal fees. Sheila's threats of a lawsuit went nowhere. Court records showed every dollar of Mom's fund came from me, leaving them with no claim. They sold their car, downsized their Cambridge apartment, and still struggled to keep up. I heard through a mutual friend that Caleb worked late nights taking on small cases to stay afloat, while Sheila's resentment grew. They blamed me, but I felt no guilt. I moved on untethered. My new life was simple Boston mornings with coffee on my balcony, meetings with philanthropists to fund causes I cared about, and quiet evenings reading by the Charles River. I had traded family dinners for freedom, and it felt right. The weight of their expectations and dismissal of my dreams was gone. I had spent years hiding my success to protect their egos, but no more. My firm's sale wasn't just a financial win, it was a declaration of who I was, unapologetic and unafraid. Looking back, I realized the truth had always been my greatest asset. I had hidden it to spare Mom, Dad, Caleb, and Sheila, but that only fed their illusions. Their pride, built on lies, had collapsed, and I couldn't rebuild it for them. Honesty would have spared us years of pain, honesty with them and with myself. I had learned to stand on my own, to value my worth over their approval. Self-reliance wasn't just about money. It was about living without the burden of others' false narratives. If I could tell anyone my story, I'd say this: don't cling to hollow pride. Truth and independence are worth more than any facade.